Welcome to Heartwired, Emotionally Intelligent Leadership for an AI World, the podcast where technology meets humanity. I'm Dr. MJ, your host. I'm joined today with Jake Pasini. Jake has been leading marketing, revenue, and analytical teams for the past 15 years in the e-commerce and retail space. He's partnered with well-known brands, finding really simple human answers that are buried underneath mountains of data. And when the sun goes down, his Batman comes out. He teaches digital marketing, strategy, and analytics at Villanova University in both undergrad and MBA programs. So welcome, Jake, to Heartwired.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to join you and have a chat today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So you have this extensive background working with different types of technology. So tell me how your experiences have really taught you about trusting the outcomes.
So trust but verify always, right? So in trusting the outcomes, one of the most important things is to understand the inputs before the outcomes, right? I think sometimes people dive, and nowadays with ChatGPT and Claude and all of this stuff, everybody dives straight in and gets answers real fast, and we have instant gratification, and that's awesome. But you get even better answers if you ask better questions with a little more details. And, it's that 80-20 piece. If you can get your question 80% of the way there, then the AI and the models, it can spit out something much more useful. So, something I always talk about with students is just, it sounds so simple, but it's kind of like a tree. And, a tree has huge trunk, and then it has the big limbs and the branches and the little outshoots and then the leaves. And the things that you want are the leaves. And if you just go straight for the leaves, you're breaking off branches and things like that. But if you go the right way and plan your path up and then go to a strong branch and then a smaller branch, and then you branch out that way, you can get exactly where you need to go. So, trusting the outputs starts with making sure you have the right inputs. And then when you have thought about the right question in the right manner with the right context, and then you put into a system, then it's much easier to trust the output, but still always making sure to iterate, always making sure to validate and see it and pressure test, and then go from there.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. And you might not know, but my dissertation was on conceptual metaphors. So I love that metaphor because it just kind of brings like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to get to the leaf, but if you jump up to the leaf, you're going to break branches. So I love that metaphor. Thank you. So you've worked with, as I mentioned, you work with like the largest brands in pretty much the world. So when you think about those organizations, and I don't know if you have any insight, but how are they using AI now, and especially in the e-commerce world? And what do you see? And is there anything that concerns you about their direction?
Cool. So to start, there's probably two main areas where it's being used. The first area that's being used is in actual development. There is AI now that instead of needing 100 developers, you just type in, and I think there was actually a Super Bowl commercial or two about it where it's like, hey, I need a app that does this, and you just type in some inputs, and then it spits out a form of a fully functioning app in a matter of seconds to minutes, right? Now, think in the same with the tree metaphor and things like that. Me creating an app, I can make something nice that, has a purpose and it's intentional. But like if you take a seasoned senior developer who has been for 20, 30 years writing code, they can, it's like I'm a, maybe art professor, and then that could be Picasso or Monet painting the lilies, right? So, development, there's, ways to, big companies are using in the tech side, using literal code and AI to then, agentically code product development and innovation way faster than having very long sprint cycles and roadmaps and things like that. So that's one way. But then the way that most brands are using it is to, take processes and systems that they have and make them easier and quicker. Now, that's got the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative. Like, it'll up productivity and make things take much less time. That also could mean, a lot of cost cutting and then being able to get rid of some people, and some jobs being lost in there too as a piece of it. But, processes that used to take a long time or require a lot of manual effort can now be systematically done using AI. And a lot of these really big companies, that can save them, they can save them hundreds and thousands of hours of work. So those are probably the two main ways that I see it being used.
So with that, and because they are going in and using AI agents and developing AI agents, how do they keep that human touch in there? How do they make sure that the output, the information is, and again, that's kind of the emotional intelligence of what I think of. So, have you seen how they bring that in?
So there's also the piece of the first part of wanting to make sure that company information doesn't get out into the world, right? So there's a human element of, hey, let's make sure we don't give away all of our key products, all of our profit margin, all of our clients, whatever form of business it is. So there's a human element to make sure that very important information isn't just put out somewhere that someone can get it. So I'd say on the front end, that's the piece. But then understanding that an output is an output, and that doesn't necessarily, it might improve one thing, but then mess something else up, right? So there's a human element of, okay, we have this thing that we can now do this way, that we can plug in here that has all these benefits. But what are some, maybe unforeseen consequences that come from it, or other things that get impacted, or other things that change? And how does that all weave together? The agentic things can't know things that aren't put in to the system, right? But there are different business functions and departments and multiple employees that all need to work together and collaborate together. And, honestly, two people could solve a very similar thing in two different ways, and then the system's not work anymore, right? So there is still a human element for collaboration and understanding the output and the effect that it'll have on the business and people.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's it's again goes into that trust, trusting the people to do the right thing and not send information out into the ethers that shouldn't be out there. And then also, what I heard was the trust of each other in building those collaborations, and then then eventually being able to have trust in the system itself, because there's somebody overlooking if somebody is really engaged with that. So yeah. So you mentioned that the Pareto principle, the 80/20. So I love the metaphor of that. But is there like an 80/20 with kind of reaching your goals? And then what is the 20 that, the concept that you want AI to help that 80% to reach your goal, but there's still that 20% that we as humans need to do? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. Is, if we put in a right input and a right question and context, it'll gather a bunch of information real fast and be able to spit it out and do something that used to take hours in minutes or weeks in hours and something like that. But then it's the next step of, hey, do we really need to, can we refine this further? Is it really worth the extra time and refinement and additional models or additional agents put on to get it this much better? Or is there another problem or system or thing that we can solve where that getting to that 80% is then going to have a much bigger impact too? And it is the ebb and flow of balance of, where do we push deeper into this? Where do we go into something else? If you do everything just to the 80, because I think a way that I would put it is, the AI and agents, everybody has them. So you have them, but so does your friend, and so does your mom, and so does your competitor. right? So everybody has them and everyone is doing it. There's the concept of like an inimitable competitive advantage, right? This is not an inimitable competitive advantage. Everybody has this, so it just becomes the norm. And so if the norm is everybody going 80, then everything's just a little bit there and there's not differentiation. So even though it's great we got the 80 and the next 20 is going to take a good amount more effort, and there's this other problem over here that we can solve and get 80, but if you do that and everybody's doing that, then you're not differentiating yourself in whatever system or marketplace that you're in. So you actually could argue that the 20% is even more important than the 80, because everybody's going to do the 80. Then it's how can you get to 90, 95, 100 and know the key areas that you want to get there and have the human element as you're speaking to expertise to get it there. Like, if someone wanted to build the world's best translating app of languages or whatever, I'm sure I could build one, but I'm not versed and experienced in it. But, someone else that is an expert could make theirs even better and have better features and things that people would think about and need, right? So I don't want to say, you never want to say never. I don't want to say never, but we're definitely at a point where you still need human expertise to specialize in a system and then drive and use the AI and the tech to be able to get that 20%, which is really where you're going to differentiate from competitors and other systems.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, I have an example. I'm the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners here in Santa Barbara. And we went into chat and we pulled out we were doing a workshop, and we pulled out, a title for the workshop from Chat GPT. And we started to work on it, and we found out one of our board members actually created that particular one and actually has a book out in a chapter with that title. So
Really?
we went, oh, wow, we gotta take a step back. We can't it was our own board member who had that. So it's really kind of understanding, what you're getting out and evaluating it and seeing if it matches, and also the whole copyright issues, that come along with that. Yeah.
And I think one of the questions, one of the second parts of the question you had was, what are you concerned about? My concern, this was a concern in e-com and data that I've had for about a decade, even before, AI systems really started going, and now I definitely have it. But the personal information. So for example, for me, I've got 2 little kids, and whenever I research anything having to do with their health, I do it in the most, not on my Wi-Fi, in a private browsing environment, because I don't want some system one day to say that because I found red dots on my kid's arm at the age of 5, that they're 10% more likely to have cancer one day and then not get health insurance or whatever, right? Yeah. So there's people used to get all worked up, and maybe still do, but I think it's a little bit of fake news about hey, I went to this website, I looked at a red shirt, and then I got an email about a red shirt and some red pants to go with it. How did they know? How did they know my email? That stuff, in general, it's based in data where it's hey, people who buy this red shirt usually like these red pants, and it improves your shopping experience. It doesn't force you to buy anything. I think in general, it might be creepy, but it's harmless. But the context of, I searched about red dots on my kid's elbow, and then that one day could lead to something like that, that gets a little scary to me.
Yeah, that's really scary. I mean, because we don't know what we don't know right now of what this data is going to be used for in the future. Yeah. So, and I think, we kind of touched on this, the whole practice of a leader or someone with that keen eye. And so what does that look like? If you think about someone, and you as a leader, coming in and having that keen eye, what are some of the habits, the behaviors that really have leaders excel in using AI. And then we have those people that are struggling to even use it.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is just collaboration and encouragement. AI allows you to try and mess up and try again very quickly and efficiently. A leader is not expected to have the answer of knowing exactly what tool needs to be used and exactly the thing that needs to be created. Should be tool agnostic and result focused, right? So it's like collaborate with teams, ask them, hey, if this thing could happen, what would make you so much better at your job? What would make your job so much easier? What would make you more energized at work? Take the people approach. Speak to people and say, hey, it's not that the person has to have the amazing idea for how to solve it, just to be able to identify the thing that if it was solved would make their job easier, more fun, more productive, whatever. And if we can, if a leader comes in and gathers those things together, then that's where the leader can give their keen eye and their perspective of, oh yeah, like they're saying this and this. They don't even know this other thing that if we had that, that would be so much better. And then that would connect over to this department. And then this can put the rest of, see the whole field versus just see that one play. That's where I think the leader should focus, but they need to start with speaking to the people on the ground and in the on the sideline that are doing things for what could be most impactful and most helpful, and then connect it all together and decide the right things to do from there.
Yeah, and I really like the way you kind of talk about that collaboration and getting the voices of the employees and that are on the front line, that are using the material, that are going in and using the agents and or helping to create the agents. That speaks volume on that social awareness and social responsibility and that empathy. I mean, that brings in a lot of those emotional intelligence skills. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's how you lead. Am I correct?
And everybody can make a positive impact every day as long as they care and they're present. And so it's just unlocking that in people, and that can bring out great stuff, especially when you pair it with now being able to use this AI and tech to solve problems.
So and you mentioned it earlier, that there is even a deeper issue here. The AI is starting to take over tasks that were traditionally done by humans. And some of those people have been doing their work on that job for quite some time. So what kind of balance do we need to really respect the impact on those individuals?
Yeah, that's a tough question and probably not one that, I have all the ability to answer, but AI is going to take some jobs away. It's going to create other jobs. It's going to create more opportunities. It's going to make things easier for people. In some ways, certain things being easier will make other things more difficult for other people. To your point, we need to hopefully align and care and realize that we're people first, right? People are what matter, our lives, our health, our families, right? So, it will be an interesting collision over the next few years and decade of capitalism was a, huge thing. And, you have these really big companies investing in all this AI and tech and, what would, if we do get to the point where no one needs to work, well, then no one needs to work, but no one's buying anything either unless a lot of the construct changes. So, I don't know the answers, but that I think to your point is the key where we go into these unknowns. We have to, hopefully approach it from we care about each other and want something that takes care of the most amount of people for good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there is a clear answer here. We don't know exactly what the impact will be, but I think it's really goes back to the leader. And if the leader doesn't want to address it, the concerns that maybe people are having, and jump right into, don't worry, there'll be new jobs, don't worry, but actually kind of, you know, have the empathy for what people are going through. And that's empathy is AI doesn't have that empathy. It can't replicate that empathy. And that's like a real superpower, I think, for leaders is to have that empathy, to understand that, they are people and these are really issues that are happening. Whether or not we can do something about it, but at least have that recognition.
Yep, I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been teaching at Villanova, I think you said 10 years, and you
Yeah,
have
I'm getting old. It's been about a decade at this point, you
wow,
know.
wow, a decade. So this is your Batman piece here. So you have both undergrad and MBA students. What do you see about this generation of emergent leaders when it comes to AI? And what concerns do you have, or what optimistic views you might have about this?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a whole nother podcast potentially, but there's the context of education and learning and how does it evolve fast enough? Like I can tell you 3, 4, 5 years ago when stuff first started to come out and there were all these concerns of like people cheating and people looking up answers and all this kind of stuff and plagiarizing and whatnot, right? And it's like, well, if people are using AI or this, that, or whatever to write the thing. And I mean, as a teacher, I was able to make like my assignments were projects. And it was very clear I'd have to look at someone's back end and see what was made and what the output was. And like, it was very clear to me who did it and who didn't do it. And, no two people's back end data looks the same. Everybody does things in their own way. And when you can see a couple that look exactly the same, structured the same ways in the same cells, you know that they probably worked together, right? And then it's like, if someone could use a system to write an essay that I asked someone to write, and then it's a good essay, fantastic. Most of the time, some key details of things that I asked for just aren't in there when people use those things, right? So it's like it was this big thing in the teaching community of like, how do you get it out? I wasn't really ever trying to get it out. I was trying to make sure that kids and students realized, use it, take advantage of it, but this is what we were talking about. You gotta check it. You gotta make sure it's saying what you want it to say. You can have it write the meat, but then maybe you put some sentences in around it. If you just use it as is, it's pretty obvious and it's usually not good enough because again, that 80% everybody can get there, right? You're looking for that differentiation. So in my classes recently, it's been, I want you to use these tools. I want you to try to incorporate whatever. I'm showing you Tableau. I'm showing you GA4. If you can tie something in and use Claude or what, go ahead. Like, I'd love to see it. Just make sure that you accomplish the end goal. The end goal was to forecast this within this accuracy and explain your reasoning. If you have something else run a whole system and you can still explain the reasoning, great. So I think that's what we're seeing is that people, these kids, these adults, whatever they are, they have lives, they have stresses, they have their watches, they have their tablets, they have their cell phones, they have their laptops. Attention doesn't last forever, right? And embracing that and letting them use whatever way they can get to an end, but make sure that they get there with the EQ, with checking it, with making sure they have the human touch on the end. And that's what we're trying to instill in the future leaders.
And I also teach at a master's level, and I had one student literally put in, without even formatting it, the output of chat gpt, and I just went in and I put in the same prompt that I thought she would put in, and it came out exactly the same references, same everything. So I had to kind of have the conversation with her. You're leaning way too hard on AI, and I want to hear your voice. I think that's really it. I want to hear that you understand these concepts, not that you're just, regurgitating something you from Chat GPT.
And that's where it makes a great balance, right? Because I mean, I'll be honest, like I remember having to write the 15-page paper, whatever. What a pain in the butt. those things were. And there's no way that any teacher reads every word of all that. So, it's good to be able to have something that can get a piece there and educate things and lay out concepts. But yes, we need that. You are exactly right. That is the key, that students need to be able to, and professionals need to be able to then take that, translate it, and put it into the value and the systems that are needed.
So last question, and I usually ask this of my guests. So if you could think about one thing, one belief, one capability, one practice that every leader or emergent leaders that are navigating AI right now, what would that be?
Uh, the concept of group collaboration, like that, it is just so important. We talked about it earlier. Like, instead of thinking, what do I need to do? Who do I need to bring in? What do I need to learn? What do I need to get? Take the people that are there, ask them the things that could be the most impactful. Like, with more power and more tools, we need more collaboration, not less. So I think the concept of leaning in and depending on everyone's view and opinion to come together to bring forth the best things that could be most impactful to the business. Like, not just a hippo thing where it's the highest paid person's opinion, not just some consulting firm saying XYZ. Like, you can have all those inputs too, but then also, the people who are invested in doing things, that collaboration, what's then going to allow businesses to differentiate.
Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate you joining us today. And for those of you who are listening, if you really like this episode and you think somebody needs to hear it, please forward it to them, share it with them. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to Heartwired podcast. We're going to continue to have great guests like Jake, and listen for the next one. Thanks again, Jake. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, MJ.
Okay, bye.